ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां व्यासशंकरमध्यमां अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। सच्चिदानंद रूपाय कृष्णाय कृष्णकारिणे नमो वेदांत वेद्याय गुरवे बुद्धिसाक्षिणे कृष्णद्वैपायनं व्यासं सर्वलोकहिते रतं वेदाब्ज भास्करं वन्दे समाधिनिलयं मुनिं सहस्रमूर्ते पुरुषोत्तमस्य सहस्राम्नां पादबाहोः सहस्राम्नां स्तवनं प्रशस्तं निरुच्यते जन्मजरादिशान्तये। So if I'm not mistaken, we finished up to verse number 3 last class, correct? Up to Purushottamaha. Okay. Does anyone remember up to what verse we completed? Verse number 3, was it?
I think we completed 4.
4.
Yeah.
So up to 4 we completed. Prabhurishwaraha.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. We will start from 5.
Nitin wants to go through verse 3. Nitin, are you okay?
I'm fine.
Verse 3 or verse 4? I think verse 3 and 4 we completed, right? I can do a rundown.
Yes, yes.
So
Yes, verse 3 and 4 we completed.
You want to repeat? You want to just go through briefly? Is it verse number 3 and 4?
Tell me, where are we? I'm not sure where you are. Because I think I missed last 2 classes.
Yeah, I think we finished with verse 4. We'll start with verse 5 today. And we'll see this anyway. All these names will come again and again. So
is it that
you want
Shri Vishnu Divya Sahasranama Stotra Mahamantrasya? That one?
That's long time ago one. We have gone past that. We have finished now up to Prabhurishwaraha.
Yog Vidyam Neta Pradana Purushveshraha.
Those are all over. Narasimha Babu Sriman. Those are all over. I think you are in class. I think you are attending some tests. I think.
Yes, sir. Meaning every Saturday, Sunday we have tuition tests. So.
Yeah, correct. That's okay. So we'll catch up on other things. Should be okay. So otherwise we'll not be able to complete this. Go forward. Okay. So we'll start with 5, and then we'll revisit at some point of time all these other ones. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So we'll start with 5. Swayambhu Shambhuradityah Swayambhu Shambhuradityah Pushkaraksho Mahasvanaha Swayambhu Shambhuraditya Pushkaraksho Mahasvanaha Anadinidano Dhata Vidhata Dhaturuttamaha Anadinidano Dhata Vidhata Dhaturuttamaha Swayambhu Shambhuraditya Pushkaraksho Mahasvanaha Anadinidano Dhata Vidhata Dhaturuttamaha. So word number 37. So out of 1000 names, we have seen 36 names so far. This is word number 37, which is called Swayambhu. So Bhuhu itself means that which is on the earth. And Swayambhu, when you say, the one who is existing by one's own self. It's called Swayambhu, or self-existent. It's called Swayambhu. And this is beginningless. You would have seen many temples, we talk about Swayambhu Lingam or Swayambhu Ganesha. So what it means is that there was something already there, and that particular thing became very famous, very big. So for anything to be coming into existence, there has to be already something there. You cannot create something out of nothing, right? So there has to be something there. So even for a fire, there should be a spark. Without the spark, there cannot be any fire. Right? So even for a smoke to be existent, there has to be a fire, right? So you see the smoke, you assume there is a fire. You already know. You do not need to validate anything. Right? Same way Swayambhu. So Swayambhu means that which does not depend on anything else. Right? So it's called beginning. Everything else is created. So when it is Swayambhu means what? That is self-existent. Everything else is created, man-made. Right? Example, you can say that, you know, the shirt or the sari or whichever you're wearing, dress you're wearing, is actually a product. It is man-made. It is made. And for that product to be existent, it can't be called Swayambhu because it has got some dependency. Like this, the shirt or the dress which you're wearing has got a dependency on the fabric. So without the fabric, there cannot be a thing called shirt. So shirt cannot be called a Swayambhu. So likewise, the fabric also doesn't have existence outside of the yarn. Right? So the yarn itself is very important for you to make the fabric. So it can be cotton yarn, it can be woolen, it can be, you know, acrylic, or anything which you have. You know, those are all different varieties of yarn available, and you can create different varieties of dress depending upon the yarn available. Correct? Again, if you go back one level below also, the yarn itself is not independent because the yarn itself has got dependency on the plant from where it comes from, or the sheep from where it comes from, correct? So if it is a woolen yarn, then there has to be an animal or something from where, or some insect or anything which produces wool, correct? So it has to be woolen sheep. If it is a cotton, it has to be a cotton plant. It has to be acrylic, it has to be a man-made combination of some chemicals, some yarn together. So it's always something or the other depending on that. Even the yarn itself, you know, the source of the wool itself is not self-created because the sheep does not come into existence on its own. Overnight, you will not see a sheep coming and roaming in your backyard or in your front yard. The sheep has to be born, or the plant which you are planting, the cotton plant or anything which has to be planted by you. Correct? So even that also is depending on, so the cotton itself which you're using, depending on the plant. The plant itself doesn't have existence outside of the earth. So all these things which are created, they are all created or depending upon the bhu, right? So bhu. Okay. So all these are created in the bhulokaha. So Swayambhu. So that which is coming out of on its own. So the source of the earth itself is coming from that Brahman or the consciousness, which is called Shivam, we can call Vishnu, whichever called. So depending upon whichever faith we are following, if you are following Vishnu tradition, Vaishnava tradition, you can say it is from Parabrahma, Vishnu. If you are following the Shaiva Siddhanta, you can call it from Shiva. Ultimately, at the Shiva and Vishnu level, they are both same. They are only names. So even the earth also is got no dependency because it depends on the source called Vishnu or Shiva, which is called consciousness, which is called Parabrahma. So you can imagine that all these things which are created, which is there, including the physical body, which we also are not Swayambhu. We are not created, we have been created by somebody, correct? We have an origin. We have a a kulam, a gotram, everything we have. So we cannot be called Swayambhu, but there is something called Swayambhu, which is already there. So this is called that which is self-existent, which does not need another creator. So in Shastram, we do not have something called a creator because there is nothing called creation, there is nothing called destruction. So you do not create anything, you do not destroy anything. Everything is just appearance and disappearance. Just as when you go to, right now you're in the waking state, everything is appearing logically, nicely, everything is very good. You experience everything the same way supposed to be experiencing. But when you go to deep sleep state, when you are at night, when you go to sleep, this whole thing is disappearing. So when I say disappear, it means it's not gone away for good. It has only gone back to the source, right? So it came from Vishnu, it has gone back to Vishnu. So it's called Swayambhu, right? So self-existent. Then next one is called Shambhu, right? So Shambhu is called the giver of happiness. So Shambho, they say, or Shambhu is called giver of happiness, right? So for getting your happiness, you'll have to hold on to something, correct? So happiness is depending on an object of knowledge. And happiness is something which you want to achieve, is always given by an object. And you will be happy or continue to be happy as long as you like the object or the object is giving you happiness. And you want to hold on to that for as long as possible till you are independent. So you do not want to let go of the object, correct? So there also the real shukam, the real happiness is actually in understanding freedom. What is freedom? Freedom from all these miseries of life. Like every day we wake up, we get up, we go through our issues, we have our problems, we have our happiness, and we have our own pleasures, pain, sorrow, etc. They are all these are called dukkham. They are all actually supposed to be the changes in one's personality, one's life, due to our own karmas. Right? So, whereas when you say Shambhu here, this person, when you know who the Bhagavan is, or who the Ishvara is, who the Lord is, then he will give you happiness, or you will become the happiest person among everybody else. See, if there was somebody called happy person, you will be called the happiest person. So there are people who are happy person, unhappy person, happier person, and happiest person. So there are different variations. So who wants to be the happiest? It depends upon the level of commitment one has to make and the effort one has to put in. So there are two types of philosophies given in the Upanishad or in the Shastram. So they are called, first one is called Markata Nyayaha. See, Markata Nyayaha means philosophy, or Nyayaha means logic, or you can say reasoning. Okay, and Markataha means monkey. So Markat means monkey, and Markata Nyayaha means the logic which is used in Vedanta to describe something. Correct. So, according to if you analyze, now you may understand why the monkey is coming in the Sahasranama. What has monkey has got to do with Sahasranama? Everything has got to do with Sahasranama or Bhagavan, because what it tells is, if you are really watched a monkey, especially because I come from a country, I lived in a country where there's all animals and everything in Africa. So I spent about 7 years in Africa there. You grew up, you see all the animals in the wilderness and how they protect their young ones, how they raise the young ones, how they're protective about it. So if you see, also you would see in zoo also that sometimes the monkey holds or the baby actually clings on to the mother's belly while the monkey is walking. Correct? Now, why does the child cling on to the belly of the monkey or the mother? Because the child is afraid that it will fall. Right? Also, it does not know how to get back on track. So it will keep holding on as long as it needs support. Right? So you will have to hold on to the Bhagavan same way also, that as long as you need support. Till such time you are ready to walk on your own. Till such time you are ready to leave everything and then be independent. Like everyone does it. Like the child also, or the teenage boys, whoever want support, they hold on to the father and mother. They hold on to the father and mother, parents, for as long as they think it is useful for them and it is beneficial for them. The moment they think the benefits are over, they think they are independent, they don't need any support, what they do, they just cut off. They just go on their own. Just like the small bird who cannot fly, lives in the nest in the tree. And every day the father actually looks after the nest as a protection, while the mother goes out and gets food, and then they both feed the children, and then the bird grows inside. Suddenly the bird cannot actually accommodate inside the nest because it's going bigger. The nest is too small, so it tries to come out. And once it comes out, it sees the world in glory. Then it just flies. So once it flies, it knows it can fly and can fly for a long time. Then it doesn't come back. The mother and the father, they always expect the parents that one day the child will come. One day the child will come, or it will come maybe tomorrow, the day after. But sometimes the child comes, sometimes after many years it remembers, it probably comes back. So what it tells us here is, you hold on to the person, you hold on to the Bhagavan till such time. See, you can hold on to anybody else. You can hold on to your parents, etc. They can only give you support to the extent of what they can offer you. They cannot give you everything what you desire. But here it says that Shambhuhu. So when you hold on to the Bhagavan, when you hold on to the Ishvara, he will give you the happiness and he will protect you for lifetime. He cannot let you go at any point of time. Right? Because he doesn't expect anything from you. Nothing is expected. It's called Markata Nyayaha. Then the second one is called Marjarika Nyayaha. Marjarika Nyayaha. So Marjarika is called a cat. So you got monkey and a cat, correct? So what does the cat do? If you see the cat, when it gives birth to a kitten, very young kitten, it can't see, and it gropes and tries somehow to go to the mother and drink milk, etc. It struggles, and once it is there for some time. It doesn't want to go out. Right? Then the mother is very watchful about the surroundings. Is somebody coming there? Some dog is coming, or some insect is coming, or some snake is coming, and it's always watchful. And whenever it feels threatened, that environment is not steady or it is time to move, it will actually hold the neck of the kitten in such a way that the teeth actually doesn't actually cut the neck. Have you seen that? Even a tiger or even a leopard, sometimes it will just hold in such a way that it will just be limp. It will be hanging like that. Sometimes you'll wonder that whether it's dead or not. But the mother knows how to lift the child from place to place. And then when it lifts, it's helpless. It cannot do anything because it is stuck within the mouth of the person, of the cat. And it then finally goes and places him in another place. Right? Similarly, the Lord also lifts you without hurting you. Okay? So you are helpless, choiceless in your pursuit. You have no choice about anything. So you just have to follow. And eventually he will take you, if you are really supportive of the Lord or the Bhagavan, he will lift you slowly and put in another place. Means what? From a karmi to a karma yoga, from a karma yogi to a jnana yogi. Okay. So he will make sure that he lifts you without you feeling the pain. So it's an effortless lifting and effortless placing. And for both of them, you need the grace of the Bhagavan. So that's called, why the logic is because both of them are, the caring is there. Both of them, there is understanding of holding on to something for protection or for gaining that sukham. And if you don't hold on to something, you are going to be alone. Imagine, like, if a person doesn't have anything. He has got no house, no parents, nothing. How life will be difficult. No guidance. So we always are fortunate that we all have everything required for us. We have a home, we have parents, we have everything there. We have Bhagavan's grace, we have Guru's grace for studying Shastram and for all these things, etc. So we are on the right track. So we don't have to be worried about anything at all. We just have to keep doing what we are doing, and you will see that seamlessly you will be placed from one position or one understanding to another level of understanding without your knowing also. You will not even know, oh my God, I have come so far. You will not imagine. I started maybe 6 years ago or something like this. Now see where I have come. I have come so far away. So this is called the Shambhu, the giver of happiness. So two theories are being used to explain this philosophy, called Markata Nyayaha and Marjarika Nyayaha. Okay. So it is difficult to say, like, who will, how do you understand whether you join the Bhagavan or Bhagavan joins you? Correct. It is very difficult. Can somebody say that the Bhagavan has come to me, or I have gone to the Bhagavan? These two things are instantaneous, correct? There is nothing called time lag. There is nothing saying that I will do something and I'll get later on something like this. There is no difference between the striking of the lightning and the brilliance of the lightning. Correct? There is no difference or time lag between the lightning striking and the brilliance of the lightning. Is there a time difference? There is no time difference, correct? Same way here also, the grace of the Lord is instantaneous. If you surrender to the Bhagavan 100%, if you follow systematically what is being said and you follow religious routine, then you are instantly taken. There is no time lag. Correct? So that is why he says that we as devotees should reach out to the Lord, because he is called Shambhu. Okay. Is it clear? Okay. So if there are no questions, you can raise your hand if you want to, or if you want to ask anything, you can ask before I go to the next one. But I think I made it clear, that particular word called Shambhu. Then word number 39, Adityaha. So Adityaha is the name for sun. Aditya also is called Pushaha, Pushan, Ravihi. All these are different names for one sun. So sun is one, but the names are many. If you have studied Aditya Hridayam, you would know that in the sun is being talked about in different names. So Gavastiman, Pushaha, different names are talked about there. So Aditya Hridayam also is, the word Aditya also is important, because Aditya Hridayam is one of the most famous slokas ever chanted, ever taught. I think I taught it to the children, Bala Gurukulam. There are about 6 or 7-year-old girls and boys who can chant the Aditya Hridayam by heart without having the book, because they come to the junior class. They come, in the Sunday class, and they're all about 6 years or 7 years only maximum. They can chant this 31 slokas without reading a book, without any prompting. So, because the sun's grace is there, and also the sun itself has got different names. So one sun appearing as many, correct? So there's not multiple suns. So Aditya here also represents what is Vishnu only, correct? So the one who is present as Aditya is called as Vishnu, right? And Aditya also means the one who is having a golden orb or golden circle. So the sun, if you look at it, it's got like a big golden orb, right? It's very striking. It's very golden in color. Right? So therefore, the Lord is called Aditya because he is in the center of the entire system, solar system. So he's the middle of everything. Aditya, and is one. Right? So there is no two things. Right? So Dwadashaha, all there are different names. Right? So Amshuman, Marichi, Gavastiman, Usha, Aditya, Sabitaha, Suryaha, they're all different names. Okay. So Khaga, Pusha, Gavastiman. So there are different names are given in the Aditya Hridayam. All of them doesn't mean they are different suns. There's only one sun appearing as many names. So Aditya. So it's like the sun. Therefore, the sun is always effulgent. The sun is always shining. It doesn't deteriorate in its shining capacity because it's shining 24/7 all throughout different yugas. It's always the same sun and it's always same self-shining. Right? It's called Swayam Prakashaha Aditya. Then number 40, Pushkarakshaha. See, Pushkar means lotus and Pushkarakshaha means the one who is lotus-eyed. Akshaha means eyes. Okay. And this particular name is given, Akshaha literally means, Aksham means eyes. But here, Akshaihi means all the limbs, all the organs of action. It's called Akshaihi. So, power of seeing, power of hearing, power of smelling, power of touch, power of smell, all of them are Akshaihi. So, here you have to worship everything as the Bhagavan here. So, it's called Pushkarakshaha. Then Mahaswanaha, 41. See, Swana means sound. And Mahaswanaha means the one with a great, adorable sound. Right? Mahaswanaha. And why does it talk about? Because the entire, the consciousness is actually a sound. It's only energy. It is in the form of a sound only. And the sound is heard through the breathing. I think recently there was some scientists, NASA, I think they actually analyzed the sun and they could hear the sound of the sun as the breathing of the sun itself. So there's an energy being produced and there's a wavelength of sound being produced. And the sound was so high in intensity, in pitch, and they could understand what the sound was. But here you already know that this Bhagavan or Vishnu is present there is Mahaswanaha, the one who has got a great sound. And Maha means what? That sound which is greater than anything else. So he is breathing life into this entire cosmos. See, when we breathe, we can know our own breathing, correct? So if you are having snoring, other people can also hear the snoring. But imagine that in the whole of the Bhagavan, entire universe is snoring, how big the sound will be, or how big the breathing noise will be. You cannot contemplate how big it is, how loud it is, but yet we don't hear it, correct? So such is the nature of the Bhagavan. Even though he is breathing individually in every one of us. Collectively put together is called Mahaswanaha, right? Then 42, Anadi Nidanaha. So Anadi means what? That which has got no beginning. And Nidanam means departure. So the one who has got no beginning and who has got no departure. We have got a beginning, we have got a departure date. The moment we are born, we already have a departure date already identified. We do not know about it, it's a different thing, but we already have a date stamp fixed as to when you are born, because your date of birth is there. Correct? Date of birth is there, time is there, your Gotram is there, Kulam is everything, your entire Jalagam is there. All the star position, everything is already there. We also have our own date and stamped in terms of our departure from the universe also. But that we do not know, because that is in the hands of the Bhagavan. Right? But this person we're talking about here, Anadi Nidanaha, as Vishnu, he has got no date stamp in terms of birth because he doesn't have anything called birth. He's not beyond birth. See, if he was also subject to, the Bhagavan also subject to birth, right? Krishna is taking birth. Who's taking birth? Krishna in the form of the consciousness is taking birth. Krishna is not taking birth. Rama is not taking birth. Hanuman is not taking birth. Sun is not taking birth. But the sun is taking birth in the form of the effulgence of the universe. The shining of the objects in the universe is the representation of the birth of the sun. Likewise, the birth of our own individual bodies, minds, and complex is a representation of the birth of the Bhagavan. So if Vishnu also was born, then he should also have a father and mother. He should also have some parent. Then you will go and look after that parent. Who is the parent of Vishnu? Then because the parent also has born, has come from somebody else, you would actually have to go and find the parent of the parent. So it's a endless regression where you never be able to find out. That is why it is called Anadhi. You cannot arrive at the truth. You can only arrive at the Bhagavan. Even in our own case also, if somebody asks you, who are your parents? You will say, these are my parents. And then you will say, who are your parents? The parents will say, these are people are my parents. The photo, they are all there. Or they are living there, they can tell this. Then if you go and ask those grandparents, they will say that my parents are here. They are so and so name. And then you have 3 generations of people who talk about, 3 different generations. Beyond that, what you do not know. Then you come from the Rishi, correct? So some Gotra, you come from there. So why do you say this particular Gotram, Kaushika Gotram, Kaundinya Gotram, Madhula Gotram? Because the Gotra belongs to the Rishi Moolam. So you come from the particular Rishi. And the people who are the ascendants or descendants of the particular race or Rishi is called Gotra. So you already arrived at Rishi now. Now Rishi Moolam and Dadi Moolam you do not know, correct? Do you know source of the river? You do not know. Everybody says that the river is coming from this side, that side, but do you know the source of the river? You do not know. That's why we never question the source of the Nadi. We never question the source of the Rishi, because you cannot find it. You cannot find it. Somebody will say that, I can go to Gangotri, to find out the source of the Ganga. Then Gangotri is not the place for Ganga. You have to go to Gaumukh. And from Gaumukh is the cow, the shape of the cow from where the Ganga rushes out. But actually, if you ask anybody who has gone to Gaumukh, even I have gone to Gaumukh before, you have to go to Tapovan. So Tapovan is actually much above Gaumukh. And that is from where the Ganges comes. But even from there, the river just comes out of Tapovan and falls somewhere and comes into the cave and then comes out. So where does the Tapovan they get the water from? So you do not know, right? So Anadi. So we do not know the source. We cannot question the source called Anadi. So Bhagavan doesn't have any date. He doesn't have the beginning. It's called Anadi. And Nidanaha means he doesn't have a departure. Can we say that the river has died? Or can we say that the river is See, when the river ultimately merges water, is there a name called river? There's nothing called river name. All the people here, all the rivers here are called independent names as they come from different parts of the country. Somebody is called Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Godavari, Narmade, Sindhu, Kaveri, Tungabhadra. All those things are names are there. Right? If you're in UK, you can call Thames also river. You can call here Murray Darling also the river. Anything you can call. All are water only. They all what? They all go, flow everywhere in different countries, different continents. It travels to different countries. Ultimately, what they find their base in water in the ocean. So when they lose their existence in the ocean, can the ocean has a depth? But the river has got a depth because the river ultimately merges into the ocean and the river loses its existence called a river anymore. So you cannot understand where the river is ending. You do not know whether the river is meeting the ocean or the river is merging into the ocean because you do not know which is what, correct? You can guess that probably it's coming into the ocean, but it is so seamless and it is so joined that you do not know. The same way when we arrive or when we understand the truth of the Bhagavan, the seamless merging of us into the Bhagavan will be not noticed at all. You would not even notice. That is called Nidhanaha. So Nidhanam means what? When you merge into something, you are free from all these things. As long as you have an identity with your own self, you will have Nidhanam, correct? So you will have a departure date, you will have a beginning date. But the Bhagavan has got no beginning date and end date. So Anadi Nidhanaha, that which is beyond birth and death. Then Dhatha. So Dhatha means the giver. So Dhatha means what is a giver? So the giver and supporter of the universe also. See, basically is a giver and also a supporter. The one who supports the universe, sustains the universe, called Dhatha. Correct. Then Vidhatha. So word number 44. Vidhatha. So Vidhatha means what? Vidhatha means the one who is giving the fruits of the action. So it's called Karma Phaladhata or Vidhatha. Correct. So whenever you do any action, whenever you do any karma, you will get results. Correct. And the results are either known to you immediately or the results are known to you, unknown to you at some point of time. Example, you give a test. Like Rohan goes and gives a test. Or Nitin goes and gives a test. He knows that he has done very well. And what results he gets? Satisfaction that, yes, I think I've done the paper very well. I think I should get good marks. So this is the expectation you have. And the satisfaction you get is instantaneous because we all know how we give the exam, correct? We all know. So sometimes when you give the very badly, the crap paper comes, you say, oh my God, I did very, very badly at all. So you already know the results. You don't need to worry about it. But you still have an outside chance that maybe it will not be that bad as I thought. Maybe I'll scrape through. I'll get 35% marks. And this time I'll just escape the skin of the teeth. So you have something, a hope in the future, correct? So this is called Adrishtaphalam. So Drishtaphalam means direct pratyaksham, you get the experience. That I did this job today, I'm satisfied, everything's very well. So you plant the seed in the tree, in the ground, and you're satisfied, yes, I've done a good job. I've done a big hole and the plant is perfectly right. I'm watering the plant now. Now, what do? You expect that the plant will one day grow and it will become a tree. It will give you fruits. It will give you shade. It will give you flowers, all of them. Right? Those things you do not know. So, adrishta phala. So, adrishta means that which cannot be seen. Drishta means that which can be seen. So, vidhata here means the giver of both Drishtafalam and Adrishtafalam, right? So it is part of the law of karma. So you cannot avoid anything. You cannot say that I don't want results. You cannot say this because the moment you do karma, your results are going to come. You like it or not, that is guaranteed. But how you accept is different thing. You cannot say that I will do karma, but I don't want results. It is not possible. It is possible only when, even for a jnani also, the results are going to be coming. But what he does is, he or she does is, he doesn't associate it with the karma at all because he is not really doing this for any results or anything else. Right? But a person who does the karma without the understanding of why the karma is being done, he'll always get a result, and he has to go through the pains and pleasures which the result will give. So Vidata here is the Bhagavan who is the giver of this result. So Dhata being the supporter and the sustainer of the universe, Vidata means the giver of the karma phala. Right? Then Dhaturuttamaha. So Dhatu, word number 45, is called exalted sustainer, or that which is exalted sustainer. Means Dhatuhu and Uttamaha, they are two different words. But you should take it as same because Dhatu means Dadhati, means the one who gives, or the one who sustains is called Dhatuhu. Correct? And when you always see Brahmaji is called Dhatha. Correct? So why? Because Brahmaji is supposed to be the sustainer or the creator of the universe, or the one from which everything comes into existence. Correct? So Parameshwara here is called Dhatu Uttamaha. Correct? So here the Dhatuhu, it talks about the Kriya Shakti used by the Bhagavan to do Srishti. So through the presence, through the mere presence of Vishnu being there, he created Brahmaji. In the Narayana Suktam, you will see Nabhyat Asit Antariksham Shrishmo Dhyau Samavartatha. So from Nabhyat Asit Antariksham, from the Nabi of the Bhagavan, Asit Antariksham. So you will see in photos also, Vishnu is lying, and then from there there's a lotus coming out. Brahmaji is actually what? He's sitting above, close to Vishnu there. Correct? What it means is that there is an unwritten or unseen cord, umbilical cord, between Brahmaji and Vishnu. You cannot see it. Vishnu can see it because he is the creator, or he is the person who is supposed to be the Jagat Karanam Karta. Right? So he knows it. So Brahmaji is always separate from Vishnu because he is a creator. So creation is something which is different from the source of creation itself. Right? The pot is different from clay. Right? See, the pot is only a form. Correct? And the pot is actually what? It's just only the same clay in different form. So Brahmaji also is the same name given, but he is also another form, right, of Vishnu. So Vishnu, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, there's no Beda. So they're all only one. But there is a story which I think, it's good to know a story sometimes. It has to help ease the situation, serious topic we have. So Brahmaji is the creator, and if you see, before I told you Pushkarakshaha, correct? Pushkaraha Akshaha. So in Rajasthan, there is a place called Pushkar. I don't know if you've gone there. Okay. You've gone there? Anybody gone there to Rajasthan? Pushkar? Okay. Nobody is gone, looks like. You're all awake, right? You're not sleeping, right?
No,
No, sir.
nobody has gone. All well.
Because you're all off camera, I do not know what.
No, we're all there.
So sometimes I wonder whether I'm the person who's talking or not. So Pushkar is actually, I've gone all these places. Why I'm telling you, because when you go to these places, you see the importance of it. So Pushkar is the only place where Brahmaji is worshipped. There are 1,000 temples are there. Around the lake, Pushkar Lake is a very famous lake. And around the lake, there are 1,000 small temples are there. It's the only place in India you will see so many temples, Hindu temple associated with it. And one of them is Brahmaji. And Brahma is the only one worshipped in that place. It's the only place in Rajasthan or in northern India we worship there. The second place we worship Brahmaji is called in Virinchipuram. I don't know if we've gone to Virinchipuram. Has anybody gone to Virinchipuram? Not gone there, okay. So Brahmaji is called also Virinchi. So there's another name called Virinchi. So this temple, Virinchipuram, is a very famous temple built by Rajaraja Chola. So very famous king in the olden days. He built a temple there. And one of the story goes is that one day Shiva actually asked Brahmaji and Vishnu. So he gave an example. Say he asked Brahmaji to locate Vishnu and Brahmaji to locate the feet, his head and feet. That means Shiva said, either of you, if you can tell where my head and feet is there, please tell me. So as you know, Vishnu is always very smart. He's a very cunning person. He is very smart. He knows how to get out of situation. And he knows what Shiva is trying to do to him. He's just trying to play a funny trick. So he said that, he could not find his feet. So he said, I don't find your head, I don't find your feet. So there is no discussion, right? So if you say, I do not know this particular thing, then I can't ask you anything. But if you say, I know, then I will say, oh, you know about it? Then can you tell me something about it? Sometimes it's smarter not to say anything. Just like, when you say that and ask a question, you are there or you do not know. No, I'm there, means it's okay. Not there. Same here also. But Brahmaji, Brahmaji said, he lied to Lord Shiva. He said that he saw the head of Lord Shiva in Arunachala. Arunachalam is in Arunachala Pradesh, the famous temple there, Arunachalam. So he's one of the temple there. So Lord Shiva got very angry. He says, you have lied to me, Brahmaji, because I know that you cannot see my feet, you have not seen me at all, because I am something which you cannot perceive. And yet you are telling me that you've seen me, right? So he was angry and he cursed Brahmaji to be born as a mortal. To be born as a mortal. Okay. So imagine that. It's a story. Don't take it seriously. But I'll tell you the Punyasthalam, or the importance of the particular place temple. So if we happen to go there, you will see that importance there. So he was cursed by Shiva to be born as a mortal. So as a result, Brahmaji was born as Shiva Sharma. Okay. Born as Shiva Sharma, he was a temple priest's son. So he was one of the temple, he was born as a temple priest's son. And the temple deity in the temple which this Chola king was called Margabandhishwarar. Correct? Margabandhishwarar is the name of the Shiva there. Okay, Margabandhishwarar. And Margadambal is the name of the consort, or Meenakshi, you can call it. So Margadambal and Margabandhishwarar. So Margabandhu and Margadambal. Okay. Then, in due course of time, Shiva, the Sharma's father passed away. That means the son's father passed away, and because he's a Brahmana, his Upanayana was incomplete. So he could not complete the Upanayana. So naturally, his mother was upset that this person is actually nobody is there. See, only the father can do the Upanayana. So only the father can actually do Brahmopadesham. If you are aware about the philosophy of Upanayanam, etc., or only the father can utter Upanayana mantra, Brahmopadesham, right? And he is the first guru. So the father is not there. Naturally, the mother cannot perform the rituals, the rites, and she does not want his son to be called a Brahmana. So he wants him to pursue studies, Vedanta studies, etc. Because without Upanayanam, you are not allowed to study Vedanta also. It's a different thing we are all studying. But in the olden days, strictly, you cannot study Veda Shastram unless you have got Upanayam done. So she was very, very upset and she prayed to Lord Shiva. Right? So then in the dream, because she's a very ardent devotee of Lord Shiva for many, many years, so Shiva came in a dream and he actually asked the mother to give a bath to the boy nearby lake and get ready for Upanayam. So some thought comes to her mind that Bhagavan has come to my dream and he's going to Upanayam for me. So she takes him to the river and he, as usual, just gives him a good bath. Then it's as it happened, the dream also came true for that lady. So the Bhagavan came in person and he did the Upanayam for this person called the Shiva Sharma's son. Correct. So on that particular day, even when Shiva came, the boy even could not put the garland on the head of Lord Shiva because he was so tall and so tall. But because Brahmaji was born as the son of Shiva Sarma, he understood that this Bhagavan, I cannot even reach him. So the whole thing was just a test, an example, or a lesson for Brahmaji to know that Shiva cannot be reached just like that. You cannot just have a garland worn and say that this is what it is. No, he is something which is beyond everything. You cannot even reach him because he is not an object of knowledge. He is not even a subject of knowledge. He is the very essence of everything. Right? So thereby, because the Shiva, was so tall and this boy cannot garland Shiva, so the Shiva bent a little bit his head toward the boy so that he could garland. Correct. So even today, if you look at Virinchipuram, if you go there, the image or the idol of the Lord is tilted. So traditionally, it is like straight always, but there is a little bit tilted like this because the boys actually wanted to put a garland on top of the Shiva. So even today it is still there. Right? So what it means is here that Dhatu Uttamaha means he is the creator and the Uttamaha of everything. Okay. So the story has got some relevance because we should not be taken away. We should not be, have the ego that we can reach the Bhagavan. We should reach that Bhagavan only without the ego. If you have the ego that I will one day get you, one day I will know you, that is not the way. Because you have to have humility, surrender, and be very, very polite and study systematically. That's the only way you can get it. So, Dhaturuttamaha. Because the Kriya Shakti is emphasized here. See, the Shakti of the Bhagavan as the creator is given here. It's called Dhatu Uttamaha. Dhatu means the source and the sustainer of the universe and is the Uttama Purushaha. So, Dhatu Uttamaha. Is it clear?
Yes.
Any questions in today's class? Anyone has got anything to ask?
No.
So
No,
everything.
not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Jayama, everything okay? So we have finished verse number 5. Okay. So we're going to start number 6 from next class. Aprameyo Rishikeshaha Padmanabho Maraprabhu Vishakarma Manastashta Stavishta Staviro Dhruvaha. So we'll start with the next mantra. Okay. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste and Shubhrati to all of you.
Namaskaram.